How do you back out of this without losing political face? That's the big challenge.
Well.
You've stuffed up. And if the referendum is a no vote, I think Labor are basically going to lose the next elections and go, we blew it there.
O'clock, and that means it is time for the Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia. Very happy to be sitting in the old chair with Derek across from me, mate. Very, very keen for today's show. You've told me a couple of the subjects, and I'm sitting down, thankfully.
Well, do you want to go Australian first, or you want to go international? Which way you want to turn this?
Mate, let's go international, and then we'll come home.
Bring it home? Okay, so we're on a bit of a journey.
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to get on the Qantas jet. Can we have a Qantas jet before, what's his name, Joyce? Alan Joyce, yes, thank you.
Okay.
I have trouble saying his name now due to other reasons. Yeah, so I just say Mr. Joyce, it's safer.
Mr. Joyce.
Oh, absolutely. Now, so let's talk about international stuff, mate. What is on the old Richter scale today?
It's really interesting that Moscow has forgiven $23 billion in African debt.
This is huge, mate.
It is huge. One of my close business associates have been going and visiting Africa recently, and there's a lot of opportunities that are emerging in those countries.
Yeah, I bet.
And so it's fascinating to see when you have a huge superpower turn around and say, yep, we're going to wipe off $23 billion.
It's not a small amount of money.
It's big. What they're doing is they're allocating another $90 million for development on the continent, the president says, Putin.
Okay.
And so that kind of is interesting in the respect of BRICS nations. We've got those who know BRICS are. It's the alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And so, of course, you've got South Africa within the African continent. And they, of course, have been talking about their own currency formations, doing deals within each other. It's really interesting how this is opening up. And, of course, the Americans are concerned because the US dollar is starting to not become the world reserve currency anymore, or talk of that, and it's weakening. And it still has about 90% of the market share, but it prefers 100% of the market share.
Of course.
So,
and I think that the big thing they're losing control of is the energy industry. You know, that's the big thing. When we're talking about literally here in Perth, we're being told, and Brisbane, obviously across Queensland, you know, that they're going to be getting rid of coal. We're not, sorry, let me apologise for that. Sorry, gas, not coal. Okay, we know how they feel about coal, but yes, they're actually going to be stopping new homes from having gas appliances.
In WA?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I know they rolled that out in Victoria.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an idea that originally came from New York, I think.
Oh, right.
And Australia goes, well, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And I think the Americans actually rescinded it. I don't know if they've actually rolled it out.
Okay.
But Australia goes, oh, no, we'll go through with it because it's a really...
We just have, especially here in WA, so much natural gas.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, and it's low emission, and it's crossing, and all those, the T's and dotting all those I's, right? It's a very, very positive thing. But yes, what I'm point being is when we're talking about petrodollar, we're talking about US dollar, we're talking about losing control of energy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And you ask yourself, why would Russia do this? Why would they suddenly turn around and go, why are we going to wipe off $23 billion and put another $90 million in? Well, it says, for me, I look at that and go, they're probably reallocating those funds going, you know what, rather than making these African nations try to pay this debt off, which they're very low likely that they're going to do that in a hurry.
Of course.
Why don't we put more infrastructure into the nation and we'll make more money by spending another $90 million, wiping off the 23 billion, these numbers.
I'll just check behind the couch. One sec.
And we'll make more money that way over the next 10, 20 years in these nations across this continent. But more importantly, too, is we'll have more control. Now, that's what nations often look for, is not just return on investment, but control. So, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Well, it's funny how the West really sell the idea that Putin is this evil, evil, evil man, but now he's forgiving debt. Now, like you've just said, though, let's face it, there's another motive. It is about, gaining control of those nations, very much like China's done, and having financial control is a very, very big plus for them. So, and having a piece of the pie of the growth of the infrastructure and obviously the nation itself.
Well, I think you've got to look at it from their perspective. I think in all of this, there's always two people to fight,
Yep.
right? So when my sister and I used to have a bit of a barney when we were little, Mum would always remind us it takes two to fight.
Yep.
And you've got to look at this from a Russian perspective. They've got NATO on their case, actually
Sure.
barring them from trading. They've had a direct attack against their currency,
Yep.
and trying to put trade embargoes in what they're doing. So I like how Shaquille put it a few weeks ago. I don't know if you've aired this one, but how it's like putting all the naughty kids in detention. Of course, they're going to talk to each other, right?
Of course they are.
And they're going to do deals together.
Yeah.
And that's what transpires from that. So these guys are going, all right, fine. US doesn't want to do deals, or NATO doesn't want to do deals with us. We'll just move our business interests away from the West.
Yeah, we'll find someone who will, right? Yeah.
And move that way and redefine how we want to do that. It's interesting when a classroom kind of shifts to the power of the students rather than the teacher anymore. I don't know if you've ever witnessed that kind of dynamic, and the teacher scrambling to keep control. You wonder if that's kind of what's going on.
Derek, let's be honest. I was the kid who sat in the back of the class. I was in charge of a few coups. So, yes. I was not the good boy.
So what do? They call him the principal.
Yes.
And
they're there too, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got these bodies who are trying to be the principal. And let's face it, the United States has operated since World War II as the world policeman.
Of course.
In its foreign policy.
So true.
And it's cost them dearly to do that. Not just financially, but with the blood of their kids, right?
Which is the
their
big
sons
issue
and daughters.
here, yeah.
And in some ways you think, what are the positives that could possibly come out of this? That is there going to be less reliance on the United States being the world policeman? Because if I was raising children in the United States right now, that would be a consideration, because they have an automatic clause in the US that when a male enters a certain age group, I think it's 18, they have to be automatically registered in case there's ever a state of emergency to be called up for conscription.
No issue here, because clearly if conscription comes my way, I identify as a woman, so no problem. Okay, problem solved, right? When we see what's going on in the US
women
now,
can serve in the armed forces.
Okay, but what you just said, I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you 100% on that. And I'm just basically pointing out the hypocrisy of it. It's ridiculous. So, I think the next 3 to 5 years is going to define probably the next 50 for the US. I honestly do. I think things are changing.
I think good things are about to come for the United States. I really do. I think the hopes of the West are on the US, because people who haven't enjoyed the freedoms being taken away from them within Australia.
Sure.
I've always said, look, Goliath has got to come down first, and that's in the United States. There's been a huge attack in the United States, because if they can conquer that and enforce their agendas on the US people, then they've got the rest of the world.
Well, to an extent, I think that, my honest thought is I think that Australia and Canada have been like the Petri dish, okay? This is where they've been doing, we'll do a little study. We'll see what can we possibly get away with. Yep. And you're right. I mean, basically, when they've discovered what they can get away with, we'll take that, that narrative, that propaganda will take to the US and see if we can literally change the flow of the world.
I think Australians are starting to wake up. And thanks to a lot of the work that Edge Radio has done,
we try
with the ridiculous legislation for farmers here in our own state of Western Australia. They're kind of going, it's been perfect timing in terms of this voice referendum. People are going, hang on a second, if they're doing that in WA, have a Cultural Heritage Act, what? And they're not giving and releasing the details over the voice. What's going on here? And I think a lot of people who know farmers or have come from a farming background are waking up and going, hang on about, what is actually going here? And they may have been okay with mandated vaccinations and those kind of freedoms, and yes, we'll play along with this.
For our health.
Yes, and we'll do that. And yes, we should be locked down for certain periods of time.
Sure.
I think they're starting to realise, hang on, I don't think the government actually has my best interests at heart.
I'll go further on that. That video that you were talking about, okay, that live, when we actually did the coverage, which is the town hall, basically, right? Yep. Over 500,000 odd people have seen that so far. Okay. So, when you consider, Australia a small population and farmers a smaller pop again, the fact that 500,000 people have already viewed it tells you a lot, right?
It does.
Tells you people are genuinely, and I notice I'm getting a lot of comments from the eastern states and saying a lot of people watching WA going, right, this is going to be the test bed. We're going to see what's happening. And within only a few days of this new bill being enacted, look at the problems they've had. They've already had major issues that have actually stopped environmental groups doing their jobs, right?
Yeah, you can't plant a tree now.
No.
And they've snookered themselves on this too, because
so much so.
What I love about this is they've shot themselves in the foot in terms of, hey, we're going to bring 1.2 million migrants in the next 2 years through the borders because businesses are crying out for that. However, we don't have the housing to put them in.
No.
Right, well, we've done these land types of legislation.
Yep.
Now, of course, all the land developers are going, we don't want in because it's going to cost us just $2 million to get a permit from somebody.
Yes.
And it doesn't make the project viable anymore.
No.
So they've absolutely snookered themselves into this situation. Now, how do you back out of this without losing political face? That's the big challenge.
Well,
You've stuffed up. And if the referendum is a no vote, I think Labor are basically going to lose the next elections and go, we blew it there.
Well, my personal belief is they should anyway because of pure incompetency. But the problem is also finding an alternative that is up to standard. Here in Western Australia, they actually held, this was last week, the polling showed that if there was actually a West Australian election held, boom, on that day, that the Liberal Party would have won. Now, that's... Look, very positive in a lot of respects because it's showing that, okay, people are actually realising that how, A, incompetent, B, controlling and arrogant the West Australian Labor government are. But there's another concern on that, and to me, is the fact that, okay, Liberal, are you stepping up to the mark? Now, apart from a couple of very prominent and fantastic, look, I will, as I say, put my hand straight up and say I'm very impressed with what Goran's up to right now. Very, very good.
Agreed.
I look on the East Coast, and I know this is not a WA thing, but I look at the other side where Liberal have damaged their reputation on what they've done to Rennick. Okay, basically pushing Rennick out so he won't be a senator in 18 months' time. The most popular senator that they have, and they're going to get rid of him because he stood up against them as a party. Now, ultimately, this is the thing we need to do in life. We need to understand that you need discourse, you need conversation, you need other people's ideas. You can't just put yourself in that little fishbowl and go, I'm the biggest fish here, I've got control of it. No, you have to listen to other people's opinions. And I want to see the Liberal Party step up. I want to see them actually doing that and damaging their reputation by getting rid of Rennick.
I want to see the Liberal Party actually be an opposition.
Oh, yes.
Because I think they've been too aligned to the Labor Party agenda. And I go, well, what have you guys been bought out as well? It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You're not giving people an alternative choice to actually vote for. And that's their own damaging. And what it's done is really muddied their brand and label as to who and what they stand for.
Well, they don't represent conservative people anymore. As I say, it's Labor light or socialism light, right? Okay. The Green... look, the red tape and the green tape that we currently have in Western Australia for trying to do business. I'm sitting here right now in a business that I'm telling you right now, I think that I spend more time paying bills to do with fees, to do with this, to do with that, right, of controlling, this big brother sort of controlling thing, than... it'd be nice to actually work in the business and not having to be chasing all this government red and green tape. It's so stifling, mate.
The difficulty we have here in Australia is we think we have rights.
Yes. We don't even have a bill.
But we don't.
We don't even have a bill.
They're not
of
even
rights.
written down.
No.
And so you think you have freedom of speech. Where is that actually tabled? Where is that actually written? We don't have that, right?
High Court, we have got a protection. It has been protected in High Court.
But they're trying to take that away from you with this new
misinformation.
Right?
Absolutely. The legislation there.
How's media going to navigate through that? And it's going... I look at that and go, okay, if you want a Misinformation Act, what is it? Who's behind it? Who's pushing for this? And then why? What are they trying to hide? Because the truth has a sneaky and annoying way of always getting out.
Exactly right.
And you can legislate to the cows go home, but I'm seeing stuff starting to come out now, and it's just blatant, that this is there. But within that, I mean, what are they trying to hide because of that? Let me move forward with that as well. I want to encourage the population in some ways to go, get past the authoritarian of mainstream media.
Yeah.
If they don't see it packaged, like we saw on the weekend that article from the Australian regarding the Fauci and COVID cover-ups that were going on at that time.
And they are cover-ups.
Now, this is more palatable to people who trust mainstream media because they're starting to see the mainstream media do this. But for those who don't trust mainstream media, they're kind of like, yeah, we've known about this for years.
Now, Derek, a year ago, roughly, you actually organised this, did an absolutely brilliant job, and it was just a brilliant interview with, now it was Melissa, I'm sorry I forget her last name after 12 months.
That's right. The Pfizer whistleblower, she calls herself.
Spot on. Senator Malcolm Roberts as well. We did that fantastic show where we literally, well, we didn't, Melissa did, exposed this absolute blatant corruption, okay? We saw quality control thrown out the window. We saw government departments covering up all the way through, right? And then a year later, the Australian comes out with it. Like, if your news is a year old, right, it's not news anymore. It's history. So maybe that's what's happening here. What we've got is the mainstream media, the corporate media, who are literally just decided to write the history books.
Aaron, I think the information's got to trickle down because my wife keeps telling me this, and I think she's correct. If you went out and told everybody the whole 9 yards as to what's been going on, most of them are going to be in shock. And she said to them, people would actually end up filling the hospitals because they can't cope mentally. Our mental services are already stretched right now in our community. And if the truth did come out in that point, they just can't handle it. And so they've got to slowly trickle this to the main masses as to what's been going on, because otherwise they're just going to hit the panic button.
Mate, I always love this show because we could talk about a lot of things, but obviously, look, people think about finances and they think, oh, boring, right? Because no one wants to talk about that. Only nerds like you. But
you don't want to talk about inverse inflation yield at the moment?
As exciting as that is at parties, no. I'd rather hang out with the hot chicks. But I think, but I joke and I jest. The reality is, what's great about this is we talk about the way it's sort of intertwined with, with politics, with everyday life, with social issues, right? And ultimately, the great thing about, actually chasing your purpose, your greater purpose in life, right? So, money and those little happy tickets you talk about, it's such an important piece of the puzzle. So, let's talk about that puzzle and other pieces that you've got right now. Let's get the jigsaw out.
What's also important for me too is understanding what are the political, economic and interest rate influences that are having on your life.
Rates, yes.
Right? And that's that latter one, right, that's really kicked in lately that's affecting people. What they're finding in the real estate market right now is that people, particularly in Brisbane and on the East Coast there, are selling houses only after people have bought them just 2 years ago.
It's crazy.
And that's really on the increase. So it appears that many of the first home buyers, particularly people in that late 20, early 30 bracket, are going, hang on a second, I've got in too deep.
Yes.
And I wasn't accounting for the Reserve Bank to be hiking up interest rates as aggressively as they have been.
Well, how many was it in a row? How many increases was it in a row? It was crazy. It was like,
it's about 9 or something. Don't quote me, but
no, I think you're right. I mean, it just got to that amount that you almost just your mind just phases out.
And they're due for a meeting tomorrow because it's the first Tuesday in the month.
Of course.
So we go into August tomorrow. So it's very interesting that it's going on. You've got a situation where we were talking off air here in Western Australia where rents are going through the roof for people who just want a 4x2. You were talking to a real estate agent about that, I understand?
Yeah, look, a couple of issues on that one is the fact that apparently in Western Australia right now, a 4x2 house, a family home, is renting out for $700 a week on average. It's just insane. So, people from the east, investors, are buying in cheaper suburbs in Perth so they can literally just buy for the yields on rentals. Yeah.
And then you've got a certain percentage of foreign ownership of that market as well. And I think it's very interesting that people don't allow that buffer to come in, knowing that interest rates, when money's cheap, it's not going to stay that way necessarily. You've got to account for, it used to be that the financial advisors on TV would say never invest more than a third of your salary or income into your mortgage. And now that kind of affordability is getting further and further and further out. That's 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and there's no way you could do that. No way. Look, I think most people would be paying over 50% surely. Yeah.
And I think the increase in food,
yeah.
prices of food, and I've said it before. How much of that is price gouging by the people who control the big food conglomerates? But
absolutely, and I can't understand the inflation. I really can't, from the point of view of we hear these inflation figures on the news and everything like that. Well, everything I go and buy is up by 30%, right? Like as kind of almost feels like a minimum,
I think it's been manipulated. I think the oil prices and that sort of thing were the first thing that we blamed. Everybody was blaming the Ukrainian Russian conflict for a rise in oil prices, and I think that was jumping the gun a little bit on doing that. I don't really think that was the whole reason why things were going. That's my personal view.
My personal view is that it was absolute pure propaganda.
Yeah. And I think it was an excuse to raise the prices. I mean, think about it from an oil company perspective. Let's say we produce 1 million barrels of oil over a certain time frame for a month or whatever time frame they do that over. Can you imagine the great delight that now you're going to be able to charge, a third more for the same $1 million of barrels of oil?
Sure.
Why would you produce more? You can just charge more for the thing you're already doing.
Supply and demand, right?
Yeah. So that's capitalism. That's fantastic. But to take that to the political extent and go, it's because Russia's done what Russia's done. I don't think it's as simple. I don't think it's as black and white. For that. But transportation costs then go up, and businesses turn around and go, you know what, we've got to hike the price. So
and even sometimes it's a case of you look at the price. It's not even a case of the hiking the price. The product got smaller. Okay, simple as that. So if you go and if you're lucky enough in today's society to go to a restaurant, you'll find your meal is smaller than it was a year ago, because they're trying to economise. They're trying to keep to that price point, because price points are very important, and they're changing the product to suit, or putting cheaper ingredients in, all those sorts of things, right? So you might go, okay, to just look at it from the outside, the price hasn't gone up, but the price has gone up.
You're absolutely right. And they do that in the grocery stores too. It's just a little more subtle. Your 500 grams of chips or whatever it is you're buying is suddenly now, 250 grams of chip, but it's the same price.
That's right.
So, the bags get smaller, the packaging changes, but the perception is that, I'm getting still a bargain.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So it's going to be interesting what happens to the housing market given this. I don't think there are... how many property owners are there out there that are going to snap these properties up? You've mentioned the whole thing to me off air too about relationships. So you've got this dynamic of people divorcing and having to then find extra accommodation for that.
So we've got this big issue at the moment. So I literally was speaking to a real estate agent who's a friend of mine. And in fact, I think we really should put a show together, because I didn't realise this. Because of post-Wu flu, so many people spent so much time together, the divorce rate's going absolutely through the roof. So obviously that means those people are breaking up. They now need, all these wonderful costs are going to go up because they need accommodation. The shortage of accommodation pushes the price up. Boom, 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 right? All these people going into family court. We all know what a bargain that is. So it's a case of this destruction of society. And I don't want to get the big heavies and be depressing about it, but this is, let's face it, you're breaking families up, you are breaking up society, right? Simple as that. Yeah. And for economic gain, that's pretty disgraceful. So there are all these factors that are contributing, that are damaging things, and it's really important that as human beings, we are here to support each other. At the same time, also, let's not price gouge, right? Okay, and support your mums and pups businesses, the smaller businesses. Try to keep away from the corporations. And that's my feeling. Anyway.
I do wonder how many properties are coming onto the market, because people are concerned if those interest rates go up higher, what's that going to do to my budget? And we're not just necessarily talking about first home buyers as well. No. My wife loves looking at property, and so I had to go see another property on the weekend and that sort of stuff. And so she kind of keeps me abreast of what's happening there. It's funny. I drive with the car and she goes, that house over there, it sold 2 years ago for this amount. I'm going, how do you remember that? I don't even remember what some stock prices were, how many years ago, And she goes, so you really should work in real estate. But
you've got another profession there, right? There we go. When she's not, homeschooling the kids and doing all the things that she does. Exactly. Yeah, no worries.
Exactly. I always see her thumbing through different real estate properties on the apps. But Brisbane and Hobart are the standouts for properties being being resold within 2 years.
Yep.
Almost 1 in 10 properties in the Queensland capital are changing hands within 24 months of the last sale.
Wow.
You've really got to look at property as a long-term investment, to get your money, because of all the fees going in, especially if you're paying mortgage insurance. You don't have enough of a deposit to get in. But not only that, your insurances, your stamp duty costs if you're not eligible for the first home buyer's grant. It's not a cheap exercise.
Not at all. Not at all.
And so property is always less liquid for that reason. Secondly, you've got to look at property differently. If you're doing a land and house package, there's very limited potential for that property to traditionally gain in growth. It's really subject to the market, whether it be a renovation or something like that.
Sure.
Whereas a greater property, with some land on it, you can do extra dwellings in some case, particularly seeing the granny flats go in these day and age with the rules loosened there some years ago.
Yep.
But that's all got a spanner in the works now because, of course, the Cultural Heritage Act.
Oh, exactly. So, these blocks that are big enough to do 1,100 square metres, which is, I laugh about it and tongue-in-cheek laugh because, I was raised, when I was much younger, the old quarter acre block, which I believe was over 1,100 square metres. And, a big backyard, we used to play cricket in all that. And then I've watched the yards get smaller and smaller. And I remember, now I've got friends who have got 650 square metre blocks, and that's huge. 650 metres, literally half the size of what we grew up on.
My understanding was they had quarter acre blocks because they believed that a family could grow their own food and it would be sustainable after the wars that occurred. So that's why we went to the quarter acre. That's what my dad always told me.
Okay.
And then, of course, we haven't been involved in any world wars for some time. And so the flood, at least in Perth, goes out to Armidale and up to Joondalup, and then it kind of came back. The waters receded, and we go, we're going to now subdivide and put properties in here in more traditional areas that are more central to the CBD.
Sure.
And and now we're going back out. The water's going back out. We're pushing past those boundaries now, Joondalup and Armidale, into areas like Byford and even up to Yanchep and Two Rocks and that sort of thing. So it's. I've always said, why doesn't WA develop a city outside of Perth? And
wasn't that the talk with Joondalup originally? Like that was it was going to become a hub and grow out from there and be very much another city. Well, I mean, apart from the fact that I've got to pay $600 to park my car in the bloody streets there, I don't see a lot of city. I mean, I see there's a prime piece of real estate right in the centre of Joondalup. Okay, I go into Joondalup all the time. And it's there was a pub there, when I first moved into the area, and that went out of business immediately. I thought, geez, well, already I'm crying I've lost a pub. But after that, it was just sat there vacant for years and years. And then before the Wu flu, it became, I think it was a Hog's Breath or something like that, one of those type ones, or something of that ilk. And anyway, it's become a couple of I keep seeing this place is just vacant all the time. Now, it is prime real estate, really is. It would be, I look at it every time, I'd love to have a business there, right? But I also know that, if you do want patrons, and you do need those to make a business work, when you have to park your car anywhere in the area, and pay exorbitant rates, that it turns you off. It's like when you go into city. I mean, I
hate paying for parking.
It's just crazy.
I hate paying for
and if it's a reasonable amount, you hate it, but you hate it less. I mean, I went into Perth, about 12 months ago to do some paperwork. It cost me $28 to park. I was there for under 2 hours. $28.
Yep.
I wonder why no one's going into the city, right? So, kind of like when we're trying to encourage the development of land, and these hubs and that sort of thing, if they did build another city or they developed another city, how about we make it a livable city, right? How about we make it encouraging for families and people to have some space, not to be stuck on 300 square metres.
It's the Babylonian system again. We
Spot
want
on.
you on the system. We want you in the matrix, as some call it. Where you're paying the rates, you're paying the parking.
Yeah.
If you don't use public transport, well, you're going to pay for it.
You're a sinner. Look at that.
But not everybody has the time to. What would take you 40 minutes to get from A to B in some instances in a car. On public transport, that's going to be 2 hours just to get from A to B because you've got to change buses and trains and catch another line and all that sort of stuff.
And on that
people
front,
don't have the time to do that.
Look, I'm not ever going to lie. For me, it's time, and also, quite frankly, I don't like some of the undesirables on the old train line. Okay, simple as that. And okay, over the last couple of years, we've been taught, don't get on the train anyway, because public transport, they're all dirty, and everybody's going to catch all the cooties from each other, right?
Yep.
So they've actually discouraged people from using public transport now.
It's a mess.
It's a mess. It's a mess. I mean, if I want to use, and I do use public transport, if I'm in, say, Singapore, I'm right on it because it's spotless, it's professional, it's on time. But, look.
It runs like clockwork in Singapore.
Absolutely. Look, great to have you here, Derek Whittaker, of course, doing the Greater Wealth. And we want to talk about something with a nice big shiny smile on our face here. So, shall we keep away from...
Maybe that would be wise. Look, I'm really encouraged over the weekend. I sat down with a couple who... about a year ago, I'd had a conversation with them. You remember that stage where you'd kind of test people where they were in the vaccine type discussion and debate? Like, there's so much segregation going on. Do I go there with these people or not? Are they thinking like I do, the direction I sat down with them, had a bit of a cuppa the other day, and while they didn't go through at that period of time, sort of on the same view that I had on there, what surprised me was their view on other issues was starting to get come to the forefront. So the whole Cultural Heritage Act was something that they affected them, right? And so they have a farming background and they're very much to the land, and they're just basically, one of them's a public servant, and they're going, this is just wrong. And the other one served as a public servant, what the government's doing. And they said, our role as a public servant is to do that, is to serve the public.
Yes.
And what we're noticing is that we're tending to serve the politicians as opposed to the public, and the politicians are pretty much serving themselves.
Yeah.
Now, for them to say that, they're incredibly conservative, right?
Right.
And
you got a recording of this, right?
Very emotionally, very emotionally even keel.
Okay.
And so I started going, okay, let's explore this a little bit more type of thing, and because I'd open up about some other things, and I was really surprised. I'm like, finally, the truth is starting to kick in. People are going, this is not on.
We joke about it, but it is very positive what's going on right now. Like, literally, there is just a really great awakening of people of realising that, the media doesn't serve us. It's not a free service. We're definitely paying for it. The government, who are supposed to be there as public servants, do not serve the public. They're serving their own interests. So it is negative stuff, but it's really, to me, mega positive that people are actually waking up and actually seeing this. It's great.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I think context helps in what we're doing. I think what's happened to a lot of us is we've grown up thinking this is normal. Yeah. And the big sham of what it is it's actually enslavement. Yep. We are in one of the biggest, and this is what I've just really come to my forefront of my mind recently, is we are in one of the biggest enslavements that we've never seen or recognised. And that's been the thing. It has been seen as normal because it's always been that way in our lifetimes, right? Yeah. So the whole fact, I had to turn my phone off. The fact that, you get a mortgage and you pay for it till death. Yeah. Because that is literally what the word mortgage is payment till death, right?
Yes, absolutely. Mortgage, exactly.
Mortuary. Look at these words, where they come from, right? And you're going, well, hang on a second, why am I doing that? So instead of receiving that kind of information, people are now selling their homes after 2 years and all this sort of stuff, this is a great opportunity to rethink things and go, well, hang on a second, how can I acquire the family home, which I've got to put a roof over my head at some point, but how can I do this without debt? Now, that for a lot of people is just radical thinking.
Yeah, look, it is. But I've actually lived this, right? So, and I won't, bore everyone to death, or for that matter, tell too much of my family story, because, people probably don't want to hear it. But my dad, and mum, obviously, the two of them had a beautiful family home. It was absolutely gorgeous, right? And then mortgages hit 18.5% of whatever it was, back in the late 80s, So leveraged up to the, right? Then it's kind of like, Dad was like, no, I'm not going to be a slave to this. Like, it's over. So literally they went and bought a block of land, right? And back then, blocks of land, I'm talking about a rural one, semi-rural, it was actually rural at the time. Now, they weren't ridiculously priced. It was out of town, a fair way. It was even a long-distance phone call back in those days, right? Wow. Now it would be considered inner Perth, but there you go. Yeah. But anyway, they went and Dad said, no, we are not having a mortgage. Full stop. the equity we get out of this, we're going to spend it on building a family home, and that's what we did. And we didn't. I grew up for that part of my life without a mortgage, and yes, we did go without a lot of stuff, right? And yes, you know, I was out there on the tools, building the house kind of thing. So we did it at a lock-up stage, and then Dad and I learnt on the go. He had a lot more skills than I ever had, but, you know, it was just, okay. Now, many things happened out of that. We didn't have the slavery of debt.
Yep.
Simple as that. So the first Tuesday of every month, I didn't watch my dad's hair falling out, right?
Yep.
So we didn't have to worry about that going up. But the other thing too, okay, we learnt we were, as a family, we were closer because we were all working for a common goal.
Yep.
And I learnt, you know, all these sort of skills about working on houses and, you know, electrical and plumbing and you name it. Okay, skills that you know, I could have taken on to, you know, other I don't know, become a trade or whatever. My point being is I learnt them, okay, and it made me a more rounded person. But I do think, it was a very positive thing, certainly for my father and I as a bonding exercise. And yes, to grow up that way without that slavery, without that, I think it's a really positive thing. Now, I used to watch how the Italians and the Greeks and the people from, you know, former Yugoslavia and all of that, how they would have the family home and they'd have 2 kitchens in it and all of that, and they'd have different generations living in that. And man, that's such a good idea. Like, honestly. And I think the Lebanese people do that still to this day. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
You're absolutely right. Family values are more important. And I think,
far more.
You know, my wife and I made a decision, and it's cost us. We agreed before we started having children that we were not going to send them to childcare.
Yes, great idea.
And we decided that one of us would be home for them. Now, we're in a fortunate position where both of us are home for them now.
Sure.
Which has allowed us to homeschool, support each other in terms emotionally, because it's a big deal. It is draining being homeschooling. Yeah. And we've got 4, and it's a big deal. But we have that choice. And it's interesting when, yes, you sacrifice at the beginning to build that business.
Yes.
It was hard. I can tell you some stories, right? It was really a pinch. But I'm so glad I do it now. A lot of people say to me, I wish I had the lifestyle you have, where 1, you can run a business from home, which was my goal, to see the kids grow up. And 2, you do homeschooling so we can go on holiday anytime we want, just connect it to the internet and lessons can continue and we can work as we go and all that sort of thing. And I can keep working on the business as we go. And I think these opportunities, when hardship comes, you go, why am I doing it like the masses doing it? Right?
Absolutely.
Why is it that we have this expectation that you get married, or in this day and age, people shack up together, but why is it that you then take the mortgage out?
Yep.
Then you're expected to have the kids. Then you're both expected to work. Then you're supposed to send your kids to childcare. Then you're supposed to work towards retirement and pay the mortgage off. I'm like, why?
Why? Spot on.
Retirement is a really new concept. And I love the fact that people are starting to ask these questions, that they've come about in this time where they're going, hang about. You know, the government's doing what? ABC. There's these expectations that I should do this way. And I come back to, as I always do, what is your life purpose?
Spot on.
Are you living that? Because life is so short. I have been in the last 3 months to 3 funerals, 2 memorials, and 5 other people in my network have had deaths in their family.
Wow.
Okay. That's in a space of 3 months. And you start to
I don't want to hang around with you too much at the moment.
Exactly.
Jeez,
a lot of people are a bit nervous around me at the moment, Aaron.
You're like Angela Lansbury
I hope
when
your
she
will's
comes to
in
town.
order, your life insurances. But yeah, and you go, life is so fragile.
It is, mate. And life and family are just so important. You know, look, end of the day, nobody said on their deathbed they wish they spent more time in their office, right? You stay with the people you love, spend the time with the people you love, and if you can, yes, sacrifice for a couple of years, few years to make that happen. It is willing, I'm certainly willing, and I'm living it to make the sacrifice for the long term of your heart, your soul, and the people you love. That's more important than a fancy car. Yeah, and I'm a car guy. So, yeah. Okay, well, look, we've got about 30 seconds left of the show, mate. So where can we find you?
I can be found online, bluskyfactory.com.au. The best way to get in touch with me is booking for a free 15-minute consultation. I'll be happy to just sit down here where you're at in life, what you're trying to do, and if I can help, great. If I can't help, great. I'll be upfront about that. But it doesn't hurt to talk. It
doesn't. And look, as someone who has listened to you a lot and has made changes in his life because of it, I can tell you right now, mate, you're doing a wonderful job. So where can we find you on the internet? Yeah, it's Blu Sky Factory without an E on the blue. So it's BLUSKY, factory.com.au. Fantastic.